morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Talking Point on your WESN Content Capital, the beginning of the week. My name is Sean Michael Small, and alongside me is my co-host, Mr. Keaton Shah. A beautiful morning here, folks. After a weekend of some interesting news, or rather, I should say, quite a few things happened Friday after we closed out the week. Keaton, how has your morning commute been these days? Because I do find that a slight shift in how they painted the road near me actually managed to alleviate quite a lot of issues, which just goes to show that you put a little bit of brain power into things in TNT, and we could actually get some good solutions.
You put a little bit of brain power into anything, and magic happens. But good morning, Tobago. Good morning, Sean. My weekend was actually rather good. It was relaxing. I mean, yesterday I did a lot of chores, so I'm feeling it this morning. But my commute more or less has been the same as with when school reopens. We're back in full swing, and the University of the West Indies reopens this morning as well for classes.
Yes.
So every morning, 1 hour sitting in traffic, One morning just, that commute really wakes you up or puts you to sleep depending on whether or not you have your coffee with you. But with respect to what you just mentioned and the painting of the lines, I'm of the firm belief in Trinidad and Tobago that 1, the lighting is terrible. 2, sometimes you actually cannot see the white lines on the road because of the lighting. The lighting is so dull. 3, we've started installing new LED lights, which is great. For example, the Kirp interchange. It's fantastic how bright those lights are. You could see the road, you can see everything. However, with white lines, it actually blinds you when it comes to the white lines, just because of how bright it is, so you don't see it. And in particular, when it rains, like, you can't see the lines on the road. It's very difficult to navigate your way. So, a simple solution, if I may suggest, is yes, we can keep the LED lights and they can be bright and very, very helpful. But why don't we paint our lines here in TNT yellow? Why do we paint it white? I mean, is there a specific reason why we painted white?
To me, I would assume it's just the nature of these things. That's how we always did it, so we'll do it. Because if we change it, first of all, you'll have to wholesale change everything at the same time. And not necessarily everybody will be aware, because yellow is used, I believe, to indicate where you can't park on corners. Yeah. So all of those things will have to change out. And it's easier to just touch up what already exists. The flip side, of course, as you say, is like, well, maybe there's a better way. Now, with regards to rain, I think, I'm not too sure if yellow will make a difference, but with regards to the LED lights, we might not just need a color switch, we might actually need like a whole technological change, because any color paint might ironically not necessarily show up well. Maybe you need a darker color, but then if anything goes wrong, the darker color at night is also a bad idea.
Speaking from my, no, you actually got, it's not like a dull yellow, it's a bright yellow. And I hear you with
the bright yellow, that's what I mean. It's like with the lights
to the checkered. No, when you have the white LED bulbs, as is what we're seeing around Nestle, around the
yellow light is close to white.
No, I know, but I'm not talking about like a white light like you put in a bulb in your kitchen, because I'm speaking about like when I go to the United Kingdom, this is what they have in place.
Right.
And it's a lot more visible. And the thing is for me is that with the checkered box, I totally understand, but those are things that are minor that you could change. We used to have reflectors on the highway. We don't have reflectors anymore, and that also used to help quite a bit, But with the amount of roadworks going on, and with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Works suggesting that this year they're going to go, steaming ahead with roadworks and road repairs, local government elections are coming up.
Of course.
It's something that you could consider.
It's unfortunate, because I've heard this before, where literally, and this is one of the reasons why I say, look, to some extent, we are responsible for the behavior of politicians, because they follow what we demand with our voting patterns. From what I understand, they don't pave roads before local government elections or general elections, because people tend to literally forget you maintaining the roads, and then they're like, well, you don't do nothing. So on one hand, I understand that, but on the other hand, I'm like, there has to be a better way to overcome these type of challenges, because again, when the Minister of Finance said we have a $1 billion budget surplus, not only do we ask about from actually paying out or maintenance that they have deferred, let's not do this now because we don't have the money. Okay, fine. But then to say that you have a budget surplus, well, yeah, but how much road works have been more or less been ignored for the last year, 2 years, 3 years, from almost the very beginning? Maruga is the easiest and obvious example, but just the potholes in and around Woodbrook, just around the corner from us, there's a hole that started on the right side of the corner, right? On the turn, and it's literally going, no, it's almost at the left. There's just enough space for a car to make the turn without going into the hole, and the hole is too deep to go into willfully.
I think Stone Street, actually, as you're driving down Stone Street to get onto Rice on the road, it's the most appropriate name, because that street is just full of stone, given the levels of pothole. French Street used to be bad. It has improved, but it's still not in a great state.
And French Street is one of those high traffic roads turning on the Rice Road.
But what I think rather amazing, yes, these high traffic roads, you would expect that, you know, they will go through some wear and tear, especially since the quality of engineering in Tran-Tobago, at least within the public domain, is not the best. But you would also think that because it's a high traffic area, local government authorities, because that falls under local government, in the case of the main road or the highway, they would act very quickly about it. They would do something about it. But it's just left. I think the most amazing thing to me is when I drive through Federation Park. You would think, given everything associated with Federation Park and the fact that it's such an affluent community, the roads are terrible. You know, the roads, so all around Tran-Tobago, everywhere, no matter who you are, where you're living, or what your name is, when you drive out of the road on the morning, it's going to be absolutely terrible.
Back to your concerns about the street lights. As new street lights get installed, I do wonder if that is also disrupting maintenance of existing lights. You know, it's like, wow, we're not going to replace the old light. We have new lights coming. Well, then what happens when the old lights go down? Well, we'll replace it with the new lights, but I don't have a light right now. Well, we have stock on order, or whatever the delay is. Because I know of a dead-end road in Digger Martin where there's a street light near the end of the street that's more or less no longer working. So it's a serious issue for the people living at the end of the road. And it reaches a point where they don't necessarily know how to get this need addressed. And it's not as though it's French Street where, okay, at some point, somebody is going to drive past it and it's going to be known to the relevant authorities. This is a dead-end side street off of the Digger Martin main road, not even off of the highway. And I do wonder if the task to upgrade the lights to new LEDs is perhaps part of the problem. Well, you're not on the work order yet.
Well, the thing is, when it comes to street lighting, the Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Commission are the ones who are responsible. So the process is, if you see a street lighting down, especially on your street wherever you live, you call TNTech, you get the light pole number, and you make the report, and they're supposed to come fix it. Now, there is no given timeline as to when they will come, but as with everything in Trinidad, sometimes it just takes forever. And given the quality of lighting in TNT, sometimes you wonder whether or not it's best to have a light there at all, because you're just not going to see it anyway. So it's also a major security issue. It's a huge security issue when you don't have lighting, especially on the roadway.
And we might say, oh, it's just light, how is it a security issue? Well, it's not just obvious. The media ambassador actually came here to speak about the fact of having lights, or, you know, having your house well lit to prevent criminals from being able to have an easy time of sneaking around your backyard or your front yard. So the street, I would think, is the first line of defense, because generally speaking, to get to you, they have to go through roads. But if there's a street that is not lit at all, we're not even talking well lit, we're talking about not lit, then it's not just the houses on that street, but all of the houses that are, you know, back to those properties as well that are potentially at risk, because there's a route in and a route out where, at the end of the day, if I can't give a description of what the person looked like, there is almost no way for the police to actually be able to start their job, much less have any hopes to finish their job.
Well, I'm not too confident with respect to the TTPS resolving those issues anyway.
I know, but let's at least not fail at the first step.
Well, you're right in the sense that, listen, if the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service would like to come and lecture us, and I say lecture us because, I mean, they have a responsibility and a duty, and I'm grateful the media ambassador takes his time to explain certain things. What I don't understand is, as much as you're trying to tell us these are the things that you need to do and you should do, you don't have systems in place. And it's not always the fault of the TTPS. I mean, for example, TNTech. So government all around is saying that citizens need to help the situation. I think they need to help the situation as well. Any form of government, be it local government or the national government. But there's a flip side to that. Criminals have become so bold, so brazen in their robberies because your property could be well lit. The street could have no lighting. They still would enter your property even though it's well lit. And many of them now don't even wear masks. They're not even covering or hiding themselves. So CCTV footage exists. In fact, I received CCTV footage of a robbery that took place in North Valentine last week. And earlier, before that, there was one in South Valentine. And these individuals are actually not wearing any coverings on their face. The thing for me is, I don't understand that if the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service needs evidence, you don't get better than camera footage of the robbery taking place. And the best thing is, you don't even have to do so much investigations to the extent that the individual's face is completely on camera.
Well,
so why is it that we can't find these individuals and arrest them?
Well, the thing is, though, not all cameras are created equal. So to get enough details so that the court will accept it as evidence, right? As opposed to, well, a tall guy or somebody who appears tall in a red shirt and a blue jeans robbed me. And then the defense could say, well, that could be anybody in a red shirt and a blue jeans. How could you truly distinguish, the accused just because, he wore something similar that day? So, and this is what I understand from a law lecturer back when I got my first degree. At least back then, the quality of cameras made it difficult to say, well, just because you have camera footage. Granted, if you have high definition cameras, not all security cameras are high definition, I believe. I mean, you get what you pay for. Then you could perhaps make that claim. Of course, Keaton, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if there's not enough light for the camera to see the guy, unless it's an IR camera, then, what's the point? What's the point? So, it is what it is.
Sure,
there was a report last week that the TTPS solved 100 murders. I mean, not to necessarily, talk down on the accomplishment, but that's 1 out of 6. So I don't really know if that's supposed to make me feel better or make me feel worse to publish that information.
I think that resolving 100 murders, now I need to know the details of these cases with respect to timeline, because if it's a murder that took place 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
That's true, it doesn't have to be last year.
Thank God it's actually resolved, it's solved, case closed.
Yeah.
If it's the cold case unit, a case that was reopened and they solved it, great. So details is absolutely important, especially when you're trying to analyze these things. But good for the TTPS, well done, you solved 100 murders. That has not brought down the murder rates at all. So here's the thing, if we are so caught up with our resources to the extent that the TTPS needs help and they need a lot more resources in order to conduct their duties, fine. I understand that. So to actually investigate all these acts of crime, especially murders, is going to take a lot.
Well, 75 of last year were of the 100.
Excellent. Well done.
That's less than 1 out of 6.
That's an achievement, though. They actually did something. The point is...
You graded them on a real low curve there, boy.
Sean, could you get lower? You see, is there a high curve to grade them on? The thing is that if I want to be kind to them, I have to grade them on such a low curve. The thing for me is, what about proactive policing? This is what I'm talking about, proactive measures. We're speaking about street lighting, for example. Proactive measures.
Well, that's not policing, but that is a responsibility.
National security.
No, right, but that is the responsibility of public utilities.
Which is why I said earlier.
Which is why these things are
not
interconnected.
everything is the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. But I'm using proactive policing as a general term now, because if national security and generally all around comes out and tells us, you know, citizens have to do their part, we have to play their role. Cool, great. My house could be well lit, my yard could be well lit, the street could be dark, I have no clue what's going on outside. At the end of the day, I'm saying is all around, and the TTPS could also advocate and come out and say, but they wouldn't, by the way. They wouldn't. The TTPS will never come out and say, the government needs to do this. The government needs to implement better street lighting or better security lighting.
Or whoever.
Or just get CCTV cameras around Trinidad and Tobago working. They wouldn't.
Those things aren't cheap. Anyway, let's take up an idea. We do have the media ambassador later today, so you know Keaton could put him further in the hot seat then. But there's one last thing I wanted to get into before the break. That is, of course, the situation with the pharmacy board. I believe that the Ministry of Health will be taking immediate steps to try to temporarily extend the life of practicing certificates, but I believe there's still an issue with the ease of getting the paperwork done by the pharmacy board, giving in the relevant paperwork, and something seems to be going wrong there with the bureaucracy. So it's not just ease of doing business, it's also ease of doing, you know, regulatory business.
I don't understand how it is we got to this point. I don't, because even the...
That's a very important question.
Even the Ministry of Health...
That's a very important question there.
...cannot explain how we got to this point.
Just to explain for people who don't understand, it seems as though the paperwork, the fees or the fees to the pharmacy board to allow pharmacists to get certificates so that they could continue to practice as pharmacists and legally disperse medicine, not over-the-counter medicine, but prescription medicine. For some reason or the other, across the board, it seems that those certificates were, well, they weren't being distributed because of a paperwork issue. I'm not sure if it's a paperwork issue or if it's a payment issue, but I very much doubt, Keaton, that every single pharmacist in the country was like, nah, we're going to pay late.
You see, to me, one, there is a drug shortage, of which we have not addressed. We've just forgotten.
We've had that for a while, right? I think.
And don't get me wrong, it's global, but we've forgotten. What does that lead in?
No, but Trinidad has had that even before COVID. We've had issues with that.
So good luck to all those out there who are trying to get their CDAP medication, because I don't completely know what you go through, but I've heard. And secondly, this is also what's going to cause an influx of not only illegal drugs, but the knockoff cheap stuff that you just, you know, is not going to do anything for you. It's absolutely cheap. It's just the watered down version, as one of our directors.
Or it's not regulated, so you have no guarantees on quality control.
Right. So all that. So that's just one aspect of it.
Safety-wise,
you would think that after what we went through with COVID-19, these are the things that the Ministry of Health will be on top of, because, as I said, even they themselves cannot explain it. Because here's what. They've extended the grace period, so pharmacists this morning, whose licenses expired today, can actually continue to dispense drugs. On top of all of that, the Ministry of Health says, listen, the extension grace period, well, that's going to allow us to have consultation with the pharmaceutical board. Everything in TNT's consultation.
You know, Keaton, consultation, I think, is becoming a four-letter word in TNT.
Everything in TNT is now consultation. Everything. You stump your big toe, consultation. It's flood, consultation. You know, you get sick, go to the doctor for consultation. I completely understand it. But don't forget, your minister is here working for you, and we will consult with you on that. So this is the entire thing. Everything in Trinidad is consultation. Why is there consultation? So that the ministry could ensure that whatever happened this time is not repeated in the future. And so that, again, we've
never seen problems repeat itself in TNT. Oh, no.
We need to figure out what went wrong, and we need to make sure that this situation never repeats itself.
We've never seen issues repeat itself. Nope. We always solve them after that first pass. Which is me being sarcastic. But to me, consultation is just a code for, well, we're going to take our time, and we need the time to take our time because we don't want to make a decision because the situation is too complex, and we're not in the business of making complex decisions in a timely manner. We need to leave no stone unturned, just like the TTPS, in order to come to a decision.
Very soon, Sean and I will be consultants. Or maybe we are ready, I don't know.
I mean, it seems though consultants get paid for a lot and actually accomplish a little.
We'll consult on that after this break here on Talking Point.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best birthday gifts are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And there is a situation that we as a media house, well, technically have a vested interest in monitoring. And that is, of course, the Media Association of Trinidad and Tobago, basically stating that, or questioning the decision of the Office of the Prime Minister with regards to who is allowed access to the press conferences held at the Diplomatic Center and who is not. And this comes after the press conference last week with regards to the Prime Minister's update on our COVID-19 situation, where independent journalists or members of independent media houses were not allowed access to the press conference. They were barred entry, and the Media Association is asking for clarification because, well, pandemic-related restrictions have been eased, and it seems as though that if the fears were with regards to the pandemic and having too many people in the room, allowing for the virus to be transmitted to those in attendance, well, the Prime Minister has gotten COVID more than anybody I know in the national sphere, and he always attends, and more often than not, he is maskless. Meanwhile, of course, we here at WESN also have not been allowed access to the Prime Minister's press conferences at the Diplomatic Center. And that is to say that while the government or other arms of the government has allowed some of these media houses access, including some of those listed who were denied entry. We ourselves, Keaton and I, we were at one press conference at an event at the launch of the mass vaccination site
Which
back
wasn't
in
even
Napa.
hosted by the Ministry of Health, by the way.
To be fair, true. But it does seem as though when the Ministry of Health hosts a press conference, people like ACP News and others, a lot more journalists from a lot more locations are allowed to attend, usually virtually, whereas with regards to the Prime Minister's press conferences, you have to be a part of a major publication to be considered, and everybody else more or less gets left by the wayside. And even then, there have been allegations with regards to how the Prime Minister has treated some of the traditional or better known media houses. In fact, it seems as though he was caught off guard by the attendance of a reporter from Loop News when he wasn't sure about her name or who she was or what have you. And I do wonder if he was surprised that a member from Loop was even allowed access.
Well, you see, my thing is, media in Trinidad and Tobago is not always treated fairly. And mind you, the media doesn't treat others fairly at times. We are part of the media. I'm going to be fair here. I am rather appalled sometimes with the media. But with respect to access to the Prime Minister's press conference that was held last week, why is it that media houses, especially independent media houses, found difficulty in accessing the Prime Minister's press conference? Now, we understand that TTT has always given a priority because it's state media. Now, you can argue that that is also something that has benefited this particular government, given the fact that airtime was being allocated to them almost free. But, not getting into that right now. The mere fact is, the Prime Minister cannot answer any of the questions that independent media houses will pose without getting into an argument. I think that's simple. And we've seen that many a times at press conferences prior to this one. COVID-19 press briefings as well. He simply cannot do that without getting into... And he holds a grudge. He holds a grudge.
Well, yes, we've seen that at least a couple of times, yes.
Put myself in the spot, put yourself in the spot. If we went to the press conference and we spoke to him about what's taking place and how is it now that you're having this press conference but Carnival is going ahead? Exactly what is the point? You know, and that's not the exact question we would have asked, but somewhere to that area. Prime Minister would look at us and question, you would just hear the press conference, you heard everything I said. So he wouldn't necessarily answer the question, but he'll answer that grudge. And we've been told, by the way, that there were journalists from media houses who went to conferences, asked questions that the Prime Minister did not like, or did not particularly like being put out there, especially putting him on the spot, and those journalists were not allowed back. The media house was allowed to send another individual, but that particular journalist was not sent back. And to me, I think the issue is overall, the Prime Minister does not necessarily appreciate the media unless that media house falls under their pocket. You know, News Source, for example, on Facebook, who, by the way, the individual who runs News Source is being paid $40,000 a month as an events planner under, what, NLCB or some ministry to that extent, right? Anyway, so to me, it's just simple. To me, I'll wait for the Prime Minister's response. When Prior Bihari of ACP News spoke to the Honourable Minister of Communications, who falls under the office of the Prime Minister, by the way, the Honourable Minister allegedly responded, that doesn't fall under his purview, it falls under the office of the Prime Minister. I am just here like... But
yes, you are in the office of the Prime Minister. You are not an independent office.
But it's not only that.
It's not an independent ministry.
You're the Ministry of Communications.
Well, it's not actually a ministry anymore. It is a wing of the office of the Prime Minister.
The Ministry of Communications. The Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Communications.
Right, there we go.
Let me get that correct. Thank you for correcting me.
It
doesn't matter.
Which makes it all the more worse.
You are still Communications, so I cannot understand for the life of me how you can give a response to that. But anyway, put it on the cross. So independent news media outlets and journalists couldn't attend. And yet we see Fitzgerald Hines sitting nicely right there in one of the seats in which an individual from the media should have been. Well, I don't know what he was doing there. I don't know if the Prime Minister would have called him at any time to speak about matters of national security. The fact is, he played no part in the press conference. And that seat could have been used for Prior Bihari, for Robert Amar, for any one of these journalists who have brought forward this issue.
Allow me to have a little bit of humor at the expense of our practical head of state, not actual head of state. He was just protecting the journalists, because the more journalists in there, the more they're at risk of exposure, because he might have COVID for the 5th time. We don't know. Now, with that said, let me say two things. First of all, with regards to what I would ask, I actually agreed with the press conference because Professor Carrington made a good case, and the Prime Minister made a good case with the support of Professor Carrington. Let's put it that way.
We have not argued against that.
So I wouldn't argue against what he said. I would, however, have asked, given what he said about, well, we have the variants inside already, so what's the point of closing down the border? our border situation throughout the pandemic between 2020 and 2022, that was a mess. So I would like to know exactly how does he resolve the failures of government policy there, because the border was supposed to be secure and yet variants came in through unofficial ports of entry that were not monitored, because at the end of the day, the illegal smuggling activity had to continue. Lord knows why.
Sean, our border have more hole than a colander.
Our border have more hole than our roads?
Well, our border,
which one has more hole? Now, the second thing is this. There was a phenomenon in the entertainment industry, whereas entertainment journalists, particularly with things like movie reviews, they wouldn't say bad things about major blockbuster movies. Why? Because there was significant fear that they would lose access to previewing these movies so they could write reviews, so they could continue their career. It makes no sense writing a review well after the movie comes out. You want to have access to behind the scenes, to interview the cast and crew, to get to see the movie so that you could write a preview so that you will then, drive views, drive hits, drive advertising. And there was a point in time where it seemed as though the entire entertainment industry was running scared at the thought that we could be denied access. So when you play those games, or at least have the perception of playing those games, all of a sudden, well, there's no criticism, there's no independent thought in that space. That's just with regards to entertainment. That's fine. In the long run, that's just a luxury item with regards to my life. This is different. This is politics. This is politics where it matters what these people say. It matters the messaging that comes out. More importantly, and I'll say this again, until the cows come home, transparency is not, a detriment to a business or a politician or any sort of leader. It could work for you, or if you don't know how to use it, then a lack of transparency will always, in the long run, work against you. Now, you could try to play chess, and I understand that in this case, it's not always going to be easy, but why are you just going to resign yourself to just play checkers? This is running the country. You're going to take the easy route, the simple route, or just say, nah, I don't want to have to deal with this. Why? If your ideas are good ideas, are strong and valid ideas, they should be able to stand up to any sort of scrutiny. And at the end of the day, if an independent private journalist that's just running a news website could poke hole in your ideas on his own, without too much help from technical experts and legal consultants, senior counsels, engineers, whatever, bigwig ministers and what have you, if one guy could poke enough holes into your argument that you have to deny him access, maybe you need to rethink what it is you're saying and what it is you're proposing.
No, we're only assuming that's the reason, but it's the only probable reason I can think of.
Yeah, what else is there? Restrictions are reduced.
So I don't know, but we're assuming that's what's the case. And by the way, given a history, it is a fair assumption to me.
Here's an alternative. I have heard, these are rumors, folks. I have no evidence of this. I have heard some people that I know speculate the Prime Minister is going away all the time because he has health issues, right? So on one hand, he might be dreading further exposure to COVID. On the other hand, he's had COVID at least 3 or 4 times reported.
He's had COVID 4 times.
So I don't know what is his, because he is the one. Listen, all the doctors wore their masks at the press conference. He did not wear a mask. So to some extent, that is potentially nitpicking, another failure of messaging. But to some extent, I don't understand what would be the public health consideration? And if they don't have that, then what else is there? Is it a security clearance thing? Well, if the Media Association is willing to verify the credentials of these independent people,
I wouldn't nitpick too much at the mask issue because mask wearing is no longer mandatory.
No,
but I'm just saying
that
yes, it's a public health concern. I think what it is for an individual.
No. If the denial was due to public health reasons and the Prime Minister is there without a mask,
considering the individual's
can't take it seriously.
State of health, he's contracted COVID-19 4 times. I think given that alone, publicly he said he's taken a vaccine. All right, so we more or less going to
Well,
give
he
him the benefit
survived
of the
4
doubt.
times,
So
Either way,
essentially,
he's immune enough.
if the entire medical team was there wearing a mask, including the Minister of Health, the Prime Minister,
and the Minister of National Security,
might have been in his best interest to wear a mask. But then again, talking with that mask on is not entirely easy. Although the medical team again was able to do it. But anyway, whatever it is, I hope that this issue is corrected. I hope the Media Association gets their answers, and I hope independent journalists are independent. Really, we have some individuals out there who call themselves independent journalists, so the furthest thing from.
Yeah.
But I really hope that they get access to these to these press conferences.
Should the Media Association be more overt and public and speak out with regards to who is vetted and who is not? Because you're right, there are independent journalists who they just say they're independent. We're left to take them at their word. And when you look at the content, it's very questionable how independent they really are when it's very one-sided. Granted, it is possible that they are acting independently and they're just biased.
So
they're just biased. But they have no ties to any entity or organization.
Just repeat that last line. They're acting independently, but they're biased.
Yes, the bias is all on their own. They're not being paid for it. They have no influence or connections to anybody. They just want to be biased all on their own. It's possible.
It's probably every single media house, less TTT. TTT sometimes just blatantly. But anyway.
No, but there's rumors that some people in the space have financial considerations or other connections too.
But putting that aside, the Media Association needs to be a bit more vocal. I think we need to raise the standards all around of media here in Trinidad and Tobago. Since I've joined WSN, since I've been on air, I've been stating this. There needs to be better journalism. Oftentimes, even we could improve. We're not immune to any criticisms, and I appreciate constructive criticism, but the Media Association needs to speak out. That means that they wouldn't. Well, again, they wouldn't. And by the way, they wouldn't speak out too much on these issues as well in relation to these press conferences or anything in relation to government, because there will be a fear that by constantly speaking out, they themselves are becoming political. So it's a thin line.
No, but I believe, again, some things are subjective, some things are objective. But when things are obvious, as much as they're subjective, when things are obvious, you should have the capacity to speak out. Here's my issue with things like that in TNT in general with regards to, we need people who have oversight to speak out more and be more proactive. Who watches the watchers? Because when there's so many examples of standards and regulations not really being up to snuff, well, the people who then man those boards more often than not come from the very same environment where they're crying. So, not that all of them are bad, but, I think it's about a 50-50 toss-up. Sometimes the board is just as worthless as the environment that they come from. Sometimes we do get the cream of the crop, and we hope that when that happens, those individuals would have the capacity to speak out, but they also kind of know the nature of the game. If they speak out too much and they become too unpopular, they might be removed, and then what's the point? So it's a catch-22, but again, in this country, who watches the watchers? Who gatekeeps the gatekeepers to make sure that we don't have the wrong decisions?
Well, I'll tell you what, Sean, let's consult on that. And after this break, maybe we will have an answer for you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokaram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
AM Prime on WESN, the only place from 6 to 7:30 a.m. where you can get the most analytical and thorough interviews and regional reports.
The Barbados Labour Party, led by Prime Minister Mia Motley, once again able to achieve a clean sweep in yesterday's general election.
I think a lot of people have underestimated the power of Tobago nationalism.
If the government is afraid to say it, I, Martin George, I am saying it this morning on your show, Andy, there will be no carnival before Ash Wednesday.
Grab a cup of coffee and start your day right watching AM Prime with Andy Johnson weekdays from 6 a.m. Only on your content capital, WESN.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. only on WESN Content Capital.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
On the next episode of Nicole Larson Live, Living in Victory Every Day.
Take us back to the beginnings.
Okay, so I think I can remember my childhood as far back, I think probably about 4 or 5, actually, because that's kind of dramatic. That's when I would have been raped. So I think that's where my consciousness starts in terms of my childhood and myself. I remember clearly that I had 2 decent panties. So I would go to school in one, and those days you had the kind of girl thing behind the fridge. I'd go to school in one, wash it and my socks and put it behind the fridge to dry for the next day.
There are significant benefits to operating one's charitable or ministerial work under a non-profit organization.
When you're between a rock and a hard place, it wouldn't be the dead end. God is making you strong before making you happy.
Nicole Larson Live, Living in Victory Every Day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
Well, folks, of course, today is the day that we have the man himself on the hot seat, because crime and all things associated with crime, it's an important issue that seems to have no end right now. Of course, it's always darkest before the dawn, hopefully. Hopefully it doesn't get any darker. But of course... Okay, that joke, Doc. Okay,
that's
right.
what you just said? No, well, you're about to.
We have with us, of course, our media ambassador, acting ASP Ashraf Ali. Just last week, we had a wonderful press conference. We spoke about it this morning. 75 of the murders last year was solved or resolved. It's not, on one hand, ironically, we were struggling a little bit, you know. On one hand, it's good. We got 75 is not a small number.
No, it's
right?
not.
It was solved. On the other hand, it's but a fraction.
It is small compared to 600 and what?
It's but a fraction. So I guess, you know, one of the things is we do have to wonder when now even simple things like having a well-lit street at times seems to be an issue because, well, the utility company is not able to meet all their responsibilities. Like, what's going on? What's going on with the TTPS? How
are they communicating?
How should we look at this? Is this an improvement? Are things getting better? Are things getting harder?
So, sorry, I was actually just going to ask if they were communicating with the utility companies to resolve that issue, but give Sean's question.
Well, I hate to say it, but it wasn't in the news last week.
Well, gentlemen, good morning and good morning to all our viewers. So you touched the nail, slammed the nail already. You ain't touch it anymore. You're just hitting it. You don't hit it anymore.
We want to get through all the important stuff because it's more important stuff.
One of the things that we're talking about is safety, and this falls part of the context of safety, not only for Carnival but general safety across the board in Trinidad and Tobago. The police service does in fact have. Firstly, we have station councils that we meet, and all stations meet with key stakeholders within the division, all the municipal corporation, the councillors, and all other agencies within the division and the station district, and they discuss some of these issues. And the police now will bring it up at our executive meeting and have liaisons with the Ministry of Energy. We're talking about TNTech, we're talking about corporation, we're talking about all of the stakeholders. Part of our CEPTID program, which is also an initiative of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, safety environments are also one of the key elements. So because of our mission of making every place in Trinidad and Tobago safe, safe means what? We have environmental factors that we have to consider. And lighting is one of the key areas. So if we have proper lit locations, we limit the opportunities for crime, because we have persons who have parked their vehicles in proper lit areas. We have persons that can walk in particular areas we are properly lit. And we're not talking about lighting alone. We're talking about even when you have derelict houses, the corporation has to remove those things. When we have overgrown vegetation in some of these places that need to be cut and kept in a particular way, corporation is engaged to get those type of things being done. Unfortunately, police service is not the one to do it. We are dependent on another stakeholder to join the fight against crime and do their part in this whole circle that we are with crime.
Acting SP, given the fact that your results 75 well solved, not resolved, my apologies, solved 75 murder cases last year of over 600, and there's so many factors of which you can point to as well, of which you just did. One of them was the environment, lighting, overgrown areas, derelict houses, and even just the staffing of the TTPS. In your honest view, considering what citizens are facing, what citizens are feeling, and given the fact as well that I'm not too pleased with the TTPS because there are times that I've called the TTPS, no response, or poor response, or still waiting for them to show up. How would you rate the quality of the service and the operations of the Trans-Tobago Police Service at this point? In your honest view.
So my honest view, I would not want to use a rate, because if you use a rate, just like any examination, when you look at an examination, for instance, when you rate someone in CXC, isn't there 3 categories that you're looking at? Reason, comprehension, and understanding before you get a particular grade. Those 3 things have to be considered before you give a grade. Right? And that's just simple examination. So when you look at the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, before a grade should be assigned to the police service, we need to consider all the factors and all the parameters of which we are going to judge the police service on. If you're going to judge the police service on one factor, which is in fact very, very subjective, right? That one factor, which is homicides, we have to understand how the other factors in society influence the homicide, and then be fair enough to give a reasonable grade based on all of that.
Yeah, so but I hear you, but at the same time, remember I pointed out something like, just a simple thing like calling the TTPS, or the quality of the reception at the police station, or the response time. So it doesn't always have to be homicide. I totally understand.
Good.
That.
So then I will ask you this question and revert the question, because you are my server. You are my the person that I have to provide service to. You are my customer. How would you rate the police service?
At this point, I would give you all a 5. A 5 for simply answering the phone, right?
5 out of?
A 5 out of 10.
Okay.
Is that fair enough, TNT? Tell me if I'm wrong. Or critique my grade, or give us your grade after 9 o'clock.
The irony is, you're not a stakeholder, so you kind of get away with it. But I always think it's a losing battle to
I also
give a grade.
think that yes, you're right, because we've argued with respect to that.
Very wise man, the ASP,
put it this way, a politically correct answer that he just gave. But at the same time, if I'm being fair to you, I also think that self-criticism is very important. So if you are telling me that the TTPS is constantly under review and constantly trying to see where the best areas we could improve, I'll give it to you. But my entire argument is, and the reason why I ask how would you grade it is because it's one thing that you're telling us and one thing you say is going on behind closed doors. Citizens are not feeling that, and you know, it's very difficult, in other words.
And I want, and Keaton, I want to agree with you, right? And I want to say that your grade is how we like persons to grade. Be honest. That is your view. That is your opinion of the police service. And I have no problem with that. Right? There's no critical assessment, because that gives us an understanding how persons view the police service in certain areas. You have just identified one area which is a service where you call the police, and in your opinion, it's a 5. So that is where our customer service needs to up our ante in terms of that and put certain things in place. We are also doing it from other perspective, where we know we have issues, or we are being proactive. Being proactive from the perspective, the perception of safety and security in Trinidad and Tobago. Carnival is one of the areas. Being proactive, prior to Carnival, we had from Christmas. Christmas coming all the way back. We keep doing the same thing over and over. And the good to do, person say that might not be the proper thing, but we keep going on the media and all of our social media platforms and reinforcing safety. Safety, from our perspective, is not just one aspect. It culminates in a lot of different areas. So we're reinforcing safety and educating individuals on safety that they never thought was important. Can change some of the person's view of the police service from service, because service might just simply mean to them how they react to the officer when they go to the station. But generally, this is part of our service. Our service here is to share more information to you all, to the general public, and bring them and give them as much information to make them more self-aware of the different things in the society.
Well, so we're running out of time, so I wanted to move on to the next point, because it's something that you mentioned off air that I found very interesting. And early in the show, I did say, look, you could judge the TTPS all you want, but let's not add issues to the problem and fail from the very beginning. So one of the things is things like street lights. If I can't see the criminal, then I can't make a proper report. What do I expect the police to do? Whether or not I have faith in them or not, let's not fail from the beginning. One of the things that you brought up off air that I found interesting is that there still is an issue with online fraud. But it's online setting up the transaction, but then when they get to the location, and you were pointing out some very questionable locations where I believe high money transactions were being carried out.
And one of the things that we still keep informing the public about is the use of social media to do transactions. So you would go on WhatsApp or Facebook, all those platforms, engage with a customer, engage with a potential buyer. Then you're going to deliver the items. Come on, I mean, I don't want to stereotype any location in Trinidad and Tobago, but Frederick, Nelson, Duncan Street, those are areas of their transaction took place recently, and 200 meters away from those streets is the Besson Street Police Station. So I am saying, and we continue to tell the public, if you have these type of transactions to make, business transaction, go to the nearest police station. It doesn't take anything from you from leaving from one location 100 meters away or 200 meters away and ask the potential buyer or the supplier, meet me at right in front of the Besson Street Police Station. You go inside and inform the officer, we are here to do a transaction, we are right outside here. right? And you do your transaction because we have persons continue doing it. Only recently over the weekend, somebody went into Nelson Street to sell a cooler, right?
Like a chiller, like
yeah,
electronic.
those chiller.
Right.
And when he was there, the information is that the chiller was on the back of the vehicle. He went to the potential buyer. The potential buyer left to go and collect the money. While he is there, two persons are already on his vehicle removing the item and running with it. No, he had no money. He lost the item. He came and make a report to the police. And we say, and when you do the further inquiry, it was on social media they did this transaction. And this is where he's going to drop off the item. Come on, we are asking the public, understand that when you are doing transaction on social media, it is very, very dangerous in some circumstances. Allowing persons to come home to your own home, persons have done that.
Yeah, but you see, I understand what you're saying about not wanting to stereotype certain areas in TNT. But at the same time, we have to be practical and honest with ourselves. And if people take offense to that, I'm really sorry that you do. But you make an argument against it, and then I will hear you out. But at this point, I totally agree with you.
We're not saying that everybody there that lives there are criminals.
Exactly, but I totally agree with what you're saying. People in Trinidad and Tobago need to be smart about how they go about their daily business. And I realize that, yes, you don't want to live in fear, right? And you shouldn't be living in fear. But at the same time, given the current situation, and given the fact that we're battling a terrible situation here in TNT, people need to be smart in whatever they do.
Well, it's not just that, because, as I said, don't cause the situation to fail from the very beginning. So now I have to ask, we have the situation with homicides. Really and truly, is the public cooperating with the police? Because you cannot have a police officer literally in every road, every neighborhood. That you're not going to have 2 steps away a police officer within sight of the crime so they could write the details themselves. Is the public giving the police enough support for these major cases? Because sometimes it seems to me that people don't want to speak out. I understand part of it is they're just afraid in general. Part of it is they don't know if they could trust police because of the negative perception. Part of it is, well, we're from here, so we can't snitch because they might come after us. Or my family member might be involved, and if I say anything, it could get him in trouble too as a consequence, just as an unintended consequence. Is the public cooperating as witnesses?
I want to say that they are cooperating. The extent to which the cooperation, what we, the police service, would like, it's still not up to par. Because of some of those factors that you just mentioned, but we are getting some cooperation, and as more we work with the public, and more we try to engage with the public, and they see us doing what is required in terms of the solvability and solving of some of those homicides, we would get more traction with the persons coming forward. It's a give and take situation, and we are working. The homicide section has been involved in a lot of different type of training, not only from investigation side, but different type of aspects would allow persons to now engage with potential and gang-related incidents where persons who involved in gangs, how to treat with them. So there's a lot of things that we are doing, and you're seeing you are seeing the fruits of our investment at this point in time with the 75 murders that have been solved. I mean, it's a small number thus far, but it's progress going forward.
You forgot one factor, by the way, in your question, that there might be those out there who simply do not trust the TTPS.
No, I didn't mention that.
Now, acting ASP, as much as you say that, is the public cooperating, is the public wanting to come forward and talk, and you said that you cannot expect a police officer to be on every street corner, and you cannot expect them to be meters away from a crime scene place. Fine, fair enough. What I do expect to see, which I do not see, is more police patrols. I could count on my finger how many times I've seen a police vehicle patrolling my particular area. And I said count on a finger. And the thing is, I'll have to put that finger down because it's 0, right? For the year at least. On top of that, give credit where credit is due. Last week, Monday, when you were here, I spoke about not seeing police patrols on the highway as I did before. Guess what? Somehow or the other, that's been magically resolved because I've seen a lot more police vehicles since then on the road at major intersections on a morning, which I think is absolutely fantastic.
And I agree with you in the context that, yeah, that everyone wants a level of police presence within their neighborhood. I understand that. But you on many occasions you ask the question, do we have the amount of resources to put that? And the resources in terms of the amount of vehicles that we have, and could we expand that to every single community in Trinidad and Tobago?
Actually,
right? Sometimes it is not, but from safety and security perspective, persons want to feel that sense of safety as our colleague indicated that once he sees the police, he feels a sense of security that the police is doing certain things. And I want to say that sometimes is the perception and the reality of many persons in many societies.
Or a false sense of security. We have to go for news, but I'll tell you what, think about this. Yes, you don't have the resources, but I've seen one police officer in a car speeding through traffic to get a doubles man. One police officer in an SUV speeding through traffic, breaking traffic, puts on his sirens to get the doubles man. And I'm sure there are others out there who have seen it. So I'll let you respond to that after news on the hour.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Opposition MP says no to Christine Kangaloo for president. Firearm, ammunition and marijuana seized in Cedros. Man gunned down in Sangre Grande. And internationally, over 70 dead in Nepal airline crash. Now for the details. Opposition MP Dinesh Rambali says the PNM's nomination of Christine Kangaloo is both a constitutional issue which blurs the separation of powers and a moral issue to have an active PNM operative placed in the President's house.
The nomination of Christine Kangaloo to be the next President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago represents a clear and present danger to the democracy of Trinidad and Tobago. Ms. Kangaloo has already shown that as acting president, she aided and abetted the same PNM regime as they unlawfully fired the former governor of the central bank, Mr. Jwala Rambaran, which I remind you has cost taxpayers over $7.5 million in damages and legal costs. As the substantive president, we should all be fearful of the damage she and her puppet masters in the PNM will cost our freedoms and rights.
A firearm, ammunition and a quantity of marijuana was seized during an anti-crime exercise in Cedros Police District on Friday. During the exercise, officers searched several drug blocks and shacks at the Fullerton fishing facility and targeted several priority offenders and found a green knapsack containing 1.380 Lawson pistol with 3 rounds of ammunition and 3 packets containing 1.5 kilograms of marijuana in a bushy area in close proximity to the fishing facility. No one was arrested. Officers also conducted a stop-and-search exercise and issued 7 tickets for traffic violations. One man has been shot dead and another wounded following a gun attack in Santa Cruz on Sunday. Reports say Shaquem Hospitalis and Denilson Kennedy was shot while climbing at Tonka Bean Terrace. Kennedy was said to have died at the scene while Hospitalis was hit in the abdomen and rushed to the hospital by police. In international news now, at least 68 people died when a flight from Kathmandu to the tourist town of Pokhara crashed and caught fire on Sunday morning. Mobile phone footage showed the Yeti Airlines flight rolling sharply as it approached the airport. It is unclear what caused the crash, but Nepal has a tragic history of fatal airline accidents. A search and rescue operation that involved hundreds of Nepalese soldiers was suspended overnight due to the darkness but resumed this morning. Earlier, local TV reports showed rescuers scrambling around charred sections of the aircraft, which hit the ground in the gorge of the Seti River, just over a kilometer from the airport. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back to Talking Board here on WSN. Thank you very much to Denise Martin for news on the hour. Ladies and gentlemen, Acting SP Ashraf Ali is with us this morning, and my co-host and colleague Sean Michael Small and I, we had a lot to talk about this morning. We give you the opportunity now to contribute to the discussion. You can express your opinion, your thoughts with us. Now, if there's something that we didn't touch on that you'd like to, there's no issue with that at all. We just ask you to be, keep abreast of the time. Keep things short and sweet. It's the best way that you can have a conversation. So, phone lines are open. Join us on the program this morning. I think the acting SP has a point and Sean has a point to make. I don't know who would like to go first.
Well, first off, just folks remember to mute your phones when on air. But Acting SP, I will say this, as much as my colleague wanted to point out about the police officer trying his one-man doubles run, I have noticed more often than before that police cars are willing to, sit in traffic like the rest of us, slog through and wait and not flick those sirens on and just push through. Because before, during morning traffic, that seemed to be, I expect to see it. Morning traffic and then midday or afternoon traffic going home. But now, I notice, Tragrit Road, Savannah, outside of Queen's Hall there on my route to work, I've seen police cars, not all police cars that I have seen on the road, but more than before. So there are some responsible police officers that are not looking to take advantage.
I will not paint every single police officer as this one in particular. I use
the irony is it used to be like clockwork. You see a police car just goes through the traffic.
I use that example. That is one example. I have witnessed more of such instances happening, but I will not paint not every officer is a bad officer or an irresponsible officer.
And thank you very much for bringing that out, because these are two different perspectives that you both have been identifying. And that is what the reality is. In Trinidad and Tobago, when you engage with the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and ask them, and everybody has a different view of the police. Some might be good, some might be bad, some might be indifferent. Those views are very important to the police service because it gives us an opportunity to strengthen our ability to provide services in the areas that we are lacking. And we don't take it as somebody just criticizing the police service. We need that level of criticism from the citizens. So yes, we appreciate it and keep bringing it out, keep bringing it. I have no problem I am in the hot seat. This hot seat is the seat that we need to get information out from the public, so we appreciate of it.
Always willing and able, I give you credit to.
Folks, let me just advise you, don't wait until 9:25 to then try and call on our one working phone line.
You could call in at that time.
Right,
you just won't get through.
You just won't get through. From what I understand, another morning show might be having phone problems. I'm not entirely sure. Don't quote me on that.
I will simply say before we take this call that TSTT got in contact with us last week Friday, and spoke to me directly, and I am grateful for that. And they called about 50 minutes later to try and resolve the issue. So TSTT is now working on it. So hopefully very soon it's resolved.
What? You have something good to say about TSTT?
Yeah, caller on the line with us from ARO. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
And a blessed day to have a good day.
Yes.
SP Ali, good morning to you,
Morning, sir.
officer. I'm a farmer, and I like to introduce myself as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, and I always look at myself as a patriot. I strive to be, that's my mission. And this program has always enlightened me that I switch permanently on the WESN for its integrity and its vision to take this country into a new sense of direction for progress and prosperity. And Mr. Ali, I don't want you to feel that Sean attacking you or Keaton in any way or form or fashion. You're a fellow with integrity, and we look up to you because we don't have much of that in the police service who is fair to take criticism in a positive way. And I just want to say this to you. We hear your cry with resources and equipment. But Mr. Ali, I am from the southern side, and I could see hundreds of vehicles pack up, police vehicles, pack up in garages. That could be, they could go back to the citizen, we could do it to full produce in the field if it's not usable for the government service. But why are they stacking up like that, and why is it not being done? That is one. Two is that when you call the police station, they get an answer to the phone call, yes. But if it's a domestic issue or problems with thieving or something, the police will give you a guidance to follow. But if somebody dies, you will see 2 jeep load coming. But 2 days will pass, and you will not see the police attending to the citizen call. Do we have the statistics to show where does the police keep the records of all the complaints and how much are being really solved in domestic issues that is dealing with the poor people in this country? Because I think this is where the arrow is leaning into this country right now with discipline. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for WSN for the #1 station in the Caribbean. Have a blessed
Thank you very much, Ko. That's quite a compliment. Wow. Thank you very much. But 2 excellent questions, Acting ESP.
And I agree. 2 very interesting but pointed questions. The one with where you spoke about vehicles at stations. And that is, in fact, something that we are looking at, where you have vehicles at several garages, that we have now the police service is dependent on the service provider to a level of service to get these vehicles up to par.
Does the police service choose its service provider?
There is a process based on certain service providers that they have throughout that we send our vehicles to. It's something that they are looking at to get a better management of this. But there are a lot of different things that I can't speak on the air about. Internally, there's a lot of arrangements and contractual arrangements that has to be sorted out, that our finance branch is sorting out.
I mean, to be fair, private vehicles, when they need to have repairs, parts take a long time because we don't hold parts anymore.
We have to take this call from Digger Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thanks.
Good morning.
Welcome to Monday. Last Friday, a caller said that during the COVID briefing, they spoke of real-world data, and they did not speak to the fact that with variants of COVID-19 in vaccinated people, the more vaccines people take, it seems as if it's harder for them to fight off the infection, and that you, Keaton, should find the data because it's there. Please don't waste your time. Firstly, Professor Carrington did not say that because that's not a fact. The mRNA vaccines instruct your cells to produce the protein that's part of the virus, that's going to help your body to recognize the virus. It does not contain the virus, and therefore you cannot get it from the vaccine. If, however, what he meant, the operative word is seems, back in 2022, the CDC did show that a substantial amount of deaths occurred in vaccinated people. But you have to take that into context because at that time there were more vaccinated in the U.S. than unvaccinated, and a substantial portion of people with severe underlying conditions would obviously be more at risk of dying with COVID. So you have to consider all of that. The same for Trinidad. That is why you must look at all the variables. The fact remains that unvaccinated people are at much greater risk of dying. Also, remember the numerous conspiracy theories that support the myth. Right here on channel 21-6, 3 years later, those people have not learned, and they're continuing to perpetuate that agenda. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you for sharing that information with us. Appreciate that's absolutely necessary.
The point that Professor Carrington was trying to make was the variants are more infectious, and we could tailor the vaccines to better prevent the spread. But with variants coming out so fast, it's a losing battle to do that. But the vaccine, whether tailored or not, still protects you.
And just remember, a vaccine, just to make it crystal clear, does not prevent you from getting ill, and it does not prevent you from dying. What it does is that it helps boost your immune system so that you have a better fighting chance.
Look at our statistics for deaths from non-vaccinated versus vaccinated.
Caller there with us from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Gentlemen.
Good morning.
I just want to say, again, the data is there.
Yeah, I have some research to do.
A question for the ESP. Or I shouldn't say a question. ESP, when the last Joint Select Committee on Crime, where they had the commissioner, the acting commissioner, the customs, the immigration, and the ports, there was something said by the acting commissioner which disturbed me a lot. He said that in terms of illegal firearms, that they were informed by, I think it was Impacts out of Barbados and working with Impacts and the US, that the illegal firearms were coming in through the authorized ports.
Yes.
And this bothered me to think that we had to be told this, because he said before we thought they were coming, the majority were coming from Venezuela.
Yeah, I think he said something like 5%.
We have a gap in the intelligence.
Yeah.
Which means we have a serious gap in the intelligence. And I'm not expecting you to have all the answers, but you all need to step up your intelligence. If it is that the acting commissioner said this in a public forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. Yeah, I agree. I think the acting commissioner mentioned 5%.
I want you all to look at it this way. And the caller did in fact say that we need to step up. Okay? But the mere fact that the acting commissioner was brave enough and bold enough to go on the Joint Select Committee and identify to that committee where the firearms were coming from a particular avenue, where because a lot of persons was only saying firearms were coming from the illegal ports of entry. He presented the data to support that there is in fact another avenue where firearms are coming from. And that discussion from a national security perspective, the intelligence is there. So because of that intelligence that was gathered, he could have made that comment.
And just a note, ports of entry aren't controlled by the TTPS. That security is handled by port security, port police.
But I think the genesis of his point was intelligence. I have 2 points to make after this. I want to take this call from Shigonis first. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes.
Good morning.
Morning.
I see again you asking the question how we got here. Although I have explained this to you on a number of occasions. We have got here because of a breakdown in law and order. We have ministers in each ministry who are supposed to say they carry out the law. They're supposed to put in their annual administrative report, which they don't, and that is the reason. And they have encouraged a set of public servants here to find reason not to enforce the law. And this was deliberately done by filling a lot of posts with temporary and contract officers in full-time posts who serve at the pleasure of the cabinet. Any questions, gentlemen?
No questions, but it's simple. We're not asking how we got here. We know how we got here. We're asking how we could resolve these issues.
Well, thanks for the call. I actually have something to add on that train of thought, Professor. And if we have the time, I will make mention of that. But I mean, the point is valid and is very important.
And well received.
I have to let my co-host make his first 2 points.
2 points. First of all, with respect to the question from ERO, the caller, and I'd like to know, I don't know if you have that information with you today, you could probably read it next week, with respect to record keeping or a log of all complaints that are sent to police stations. You know, if that is actually kept, or if it is you just answer the phone and say, all right, an officer's on his way. We need information. And 2, exactly, you know, yes, you're saying that the acting commission was very brave to come on public and state this information. I want to know how it is you'll gather your intelligence or how you gather your data, because giving me the end result is one thing. You could call any number and say 5% of the guns is from Venezuela or 10% to 15%. How it is you got to that figure? You know, so what is the intelligence gathering?
Unfortunately, I would not be able to discuss that on national TV. That's a serious national security issue. But the commissioner did, in fact, have that information, and I'm glad that he presented, because it gives it gives the community of Trinidad and Tobago a different perspective and an understanding that it is not one avenue alone.
We have to take the call.
But
I'll just say it's in line with what we see. We see modern weapons. We don't see old weapons. That implies recently manufactured. They look American made.
We have a call on there with us from Mova. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning. So nice to get you on this program.
Good morning.
It's very accessible. I like that. I've been watching this program, like a guy just said before in the program, for a little while, and it is very constructive. It has some nice constructiveness on this program, more than any other station. What I want to say, though, you know, Almighty God has created man, and he has created laws to govern man, because he knows the hearts of men. Every country is like a hula hoop that is around somebody's waist, and people just running around it, whining around it. It's not going anywhere. It stays on your waist. If we don't bring back the barbaric laws that we always complain about, we would not stop the barbaric killing in this country and all throughout the world. The barbaric laws have to implement. If a man stealing, there's a criteria. We have laws that people getting passing a law to open a hotel where a man could go and have intercourse, pay and get intercourse. We have people getting bail on firearms. We have people getting bail on murder. Where are we really going? We have to bring back the barbaric laws, because there's barbaric killing every day. 600 and something murder for the year. Isn't that real barbaric? Children growing up seeing murder every day. Isn't that barbaric? We have to come back to the barbaric law and stop the politicians, the lawmakers, and them just playing games. Everybody eating and happy and flying in and out when as they want, and the people on the ground just dying like flies. Bring back the barbaric law. That's what we want to see in the world. Bring back the barbaric law. Go in Iran. People in this Middle East country, there's the jewelry place open. Go in Margarita, you're seeing money pack up on shelf like it's item ghost trees. You know why? Because people are making certain laws that anytime they catch you in these areas, they're going to deal with you very harsh. Let us come back to the barbaric law. It happened to me and all.
I thank you very much, caller, for your contribution.
That's an interesting point.
But I mean, I guess the point also stems from a certain era of frustration. That the caller is
and concern.
Yeah. So I mean, acting SPN.
I can't speak to the laws, but
speak to me. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you with respect to the caller from Miaro and their point about the record keeping of calls.
So we do have records of the calls that come in and how they are treated with. Each station district will have different type of calls. To collate all of that from our CAPA branch, Crime and Problem Analysis branch, we'll have to pull all that data together to see whether or not basically what the officer, what the investigator, if the investigation and what type of investigation has been done. So it is going to be something that we have to look at to get that data to justify whether or not where the caller is indicating whether or not these calls are being treated with.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think for the sake of time, we should close off the phone lines now, as it's 9:25. We don't necessarily want a late call too close to the program. But there's one observation that I want to make, because the professor said the breakdown in law and order. So I mentioned something, I think, maybe a couple of weeks ago, where, or at least, I don't know if I mentioned this on air, where I do wonder if in the past, when it seemed as though society was fine, it's gang members killing gang members, it's just, criminals killing criminals. If that situation kind of let the cat out of the bag, and eventually the criminals realize, well, they have a lot of various issues with the criminal justice system. And murder seems to be a crime that relatively, more often than not, we could get away scot-free. From what I understand, the price to hire somebody to commit murder isn't all that high in TNT, which makes me think, that might actually be a true thing. How they view murder now is business as usual.
I think you have to be careful, because the acting ASP will sit you down afterwards and ask you where you're getting this information from.
No, I don't know about that one, right? I cannot reveal my sources. That's a national security issue. But I do. Does that theory kind of lend credence as while society, I think we were a bit complacent when we saw just the criminals killing each other. Now we reached 6-year-olds being gunned down. Perhaps in a gang war, I'm not entirely sure why that house was targeted, but it's gotten out of control, and that might be a societal thing, not just a police or criminal justice thing.
And from a public safety and security perspective, these are some of the things that we have to look at, because of the fact that no longer we treat him with one particular crime. So you have an illegal firearm in your possession, that's an offense. The use of it now goes into another realm where we have a robbery with aggravation, a shooting with intent. We have shooting with intent, shooting and wounding. Then that escalates. Yeah. It escalates it escalates straight into a murder. So now we have to look at it from where it started and where it's ending. We'll see a lot of these incidents ending in the most violent of all, and the fatalities of it. So you have to look at how it is escalating through up the line.
Is this a trend? Because it seems in Mexico, I saw one report where the people that filled the power vacuum when El Chapo was arrested, they're more violent. They're not looking at drugs as a business. They're looking at violence and power and intimidation. Is this a trend globally that might be influencing criminals locally?
Well, we have criminal elements who like the intimidation tactics, use that opportunity to intimidate an entire community. They're not violent in the community, but the mere fact that they reside in that community and how they treat that community, it automatically implies that you can't do what or what in this community because of
you also know that some criminals are hailed as heroes to a particular community for what they might do to a community. I don't know if that's the case anymore, but that used to be. But anyway, as we wrap up, I want to just again reiterate what the caller from Yara said. Acting ASP, never feel as though you're a target from Sean and I. We're not looking to attack you, but rather and I can speak on behalf of my co-host as well, we both admire, but we also appreciate and respect your willingness to always come and speak to us and how open you are. Need I say that Acting ASP Ashraf Ali is a very intelligent individual. I mean, even the conversations that we have off air, excellent, and I give him credit for that. It's not very often you see that from individuals, so sir, thank you for your service, thank you for your contribution to this program and the national discussion, and well done for everything, sir. We salute you for that, so thank you.
And if I may say, if only other spokespersons and forward-facing, individuals would maybe take a page out of the ASP's book with regards to how to deal with questioning and difficult questions. That's all I'll say.
Very intelligent responses at times. But Acting ASP, thank you very much. Good seeing you once more.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. It's appreciated. But for the end of the month and leading up to Carnival, some of our conversation will be about safety and security. There are a lot of aspects of safety and security. So over the week, we will get into other areas as it comes closer to Carnival, because Carnival is not only on the streets, Carnival is also by the beaches. I know we had challenges by the beaches. We have persons who go by the rivers, and Carnival is all about Trinidad and Tobago. So leading up to Carnival, we will keep reiterating some of the safety tips and some of the safety precautions that we have coming up. So we look forward to having more conversation on safety and security leading all the way up to Carnival and beyond that.
Certainly we look forward to that. Sean Michael Small, thank you very much. Glad to know that your week, well, I hope your weekend was as good, because you're bubbly and bright this morning, and that's a good sign. So
I mean, I overslept.
That's...
Which means I didn't sleep enough last night.
That is typical.
So technically I'm cranky this morning.
Oh, God, it's going to be a great day. Remember,
we're all in this together, folks.
Remember, today is a good day to have a good day. I'll try to bear it with a cranky. Sean,
we're all in this together.
Have a good one. Keep safe, keep well, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN.
The perfect mix of news,